Welcome back. Today, we are going to be looking at trucks, APCs, and all manner of fun little toys like that. So, what you're going to see is footage from the Russian Gaz AAA, the Russian half-track, the American Studebaker, the German premium half-track, and the German tech tree half-track. I do not have the Japanese truck yet, but all of the trucks that have come into the game so far all more or less seem similar. So, what I want to discuss today is number one, how the trucks perform in-game and the APC role in general. If it's been a success, if it hasn't been. I want to get into a little bit of the differences between the tech tree ones and the premium ones. Then I want to get into the tweaks that I want to see on what we currently have, because there are a few things that annoy me a little bit that I really wish they would just change just a smidge about them. And then I want to discuss the potential future of the APC as a role. So, starting off, what are you getting when you get any of these APC classes in the tech tree? Well, across the board, they all research for about 100,000 research. I actually think it's 100,000 flat. And they're right at the end of BR2 for Russia. They're right at the end of BR2 for America. It's right in the middle of BR2 for Japan, and for Germany, it's right at the end of BR2. The trucks, they all have slight differences in performance. The Gaz AAA for Russia has 48 horsepower at 2200 RPM. You can go up to 48 kilometers an hour. The American Studebaker can do 63 kilometers an hour and has 81 horsepower at 2500. The Germans, with their SDKFZ7, has 119 horsepower at 2600 RPM for 49 kilometers an hour. And the Type 94 Isuzu truck for Japan is 58 horsepower at 2500 RPM for 59 kilometers an hour. You start out with a driver. The driver's armed with a pistol and a toolkit, and you get 3 riflemen. Now, when you go to upgrade them, you can add 2 more members onto the squad. So it starts as a 4-man squad, it goes up to 6. You get 3 specialist choices. You can, for your first choice, choose between a machine gunner, an assaulter, and a radio operator. For your second choice, you get a choice between a sniper, a medic, and an assaulter. And for your last choice, you get a choice between a machine gunner and an AT soldier. So that's really where your first deviation comes in from the premium ones. The premium ones do not take riflemen at all. The premium ones are up to 2 assaulters, up to 2 machine gunners, an AT soldier, a driver, and up to 1 radio operator. The only thing that is required out of that list is the radio operator, is the driver. Imagine if it was the radio operator. Likewise, with the free trucks, you're required to have the driver, but you can theoretically run a driver and 5 riflemen if you really wanted to. But I don't know if that's something you would want to do. You might be able to make an argument for it with Germany or Russia at high tier. Even with America, you could give them all M2 carbines, which probably wouldn't be terrible. You can make a pretty decent argument for running M2 carbines over some of the Thompson variants, but I think you get a lot from your specialists. So, what I've primarily been running with is an assaulter, a medic, and an AT soldier. Depending on your faction, you could change that up. I recognize the argument for 2 assaulters instead of the medic because you can get better perks without the medic. I like having the medic because they can put down med boxes and they can heal the rest of the squad. It's a little bit niche, and it's really not something you can really depend on because your specialists, like all AI soldiers, are gonna get mulched when you're not looking. But if you're gonna defend an objective, right? The squad doesn't have access to an engineer, so it's nice to at least be able to contribute something, like putting down a med box. Depending on where you plan on using them, you could also outfit them differently. There's, I think, a pretty good argument for taking AT, but the machine gun's a decent choice. Again, depending on the BR. If I was strictly running high tier America, and I wasn't playing, if I wasn't playing BR2, 3, or 4 for America, and I was just playing BR5, I probably would drop the AT soldier and bring the machine gunner, because the M9 bazooka is pretty worthless. I feel like the amount of extra anti-tank power you gain over like a hand-thrown explosive pack at BR5 is not substantial enough versus taking an M1919, for example. You just gain so much firepower with an M1919, and a lot of the tanks that you'd be able to reach out and touch with a shoulder-launched projectile launcher is mitigated by the lack of penetration. You basically have to have the side of the tank, and if you're already going to have the side of the tank, there's a good chance you can just walk 50 meters closer and throw a bomb at it, but that decision's up to you. I think the other big choice is whether you want 2 machine gunners or whether you want an assaulter. I think assaulters in general are more versatile, and in a pinch they can fill a similar role to a machine gunner. Having the machine gunner isn't suddenly getting you access to like a heavy machine gun or anything like that. If you're playing rank 3 or 4 America, you might make an argument for it because you get access to bars. You could make the same argument with rank 3 Germany with the Battle Pass bar, or with the MG34. I mean, it is a pretty good machine gun. At rank 2, a lot of the machine guns are kind of iffy. So, take Russia for example. I hate the Madsen. I think it's a bad machine gun. But they have access to the PPS-42, the PPS-43, and the PPD-38, or 34, whatever. And because of that, I think for them, having 2 assaulters, or an assaulter and a medic, gets you a lot more value. If you're looking at Germany, you've got MP40s early on, you've got STGs and MP717s and Kirlis, and a whole boatload of other weapons late. Generally speaking, I think I'd still rather have the assaulters, unless I was specifically going to play them at 3. Specifically at 3, I think the bar from the Battle Pass is good enough that having the extra machine gunner would be nice. I would still take AT, I would just swap one of the assaulters for a machine gunner. Because at BR3 you get Panzerfaust 60s, and Panzerfaust 60s are fantastic. I would never give that up. Looking at your other slot though, if you're strictly speaking gonna play BR5 as Germany, you could make the argument to pick up the sniper and put either an FG-42-2 sniper, or you could put on a Sturmgewehr sniper or an MKB sniper. Personally, I wouldn't. Most of the time with my STG snipers, I take the sight off of them and just treat it like a 5th assaulter in a normal assault squad. So I think I'd personally rather take another assaulter, but if you like having like a marksman in your squad, like let's say you're going to give him the FG-42 too, or let's say you're playing America and you're going to give him a sniper grand, or you're playing Russia and you're going to give them an AVS-36 sniper, you can make the argument for it. It's not terrible, but I think assaulters, at least for me, fit my playstyle better, so I prefer them. So that's pretty much how I've been outfitting them. As far as their in-game performance, when I initially started playing with the APCs, playing with the trucks, I thought they were cool, I thought they were novel, and I thought that novelty kind of wore off quickly. They've really grown on me though. Like my initial take was because I was playing the Russian half track a lot, and I was playing the paratroopers that had just come out a lot, like both sets of paratroopers. And my initial take was basically, if I was a paratrooper, I would get there faster, and I'd be in the action. And that is true. But if you're playing paratroopers, a lot of the value that they gain from their box comes from either the assault pickup or the AT pickup. So you're not going to have an engineer most of the time, unless you're specifically dropping to get a flanking spawn point, in which case you drop in, you grab the mortar, you get the engineer, you build the spawn point. But then you're largely going to use your stock weapons, whatever you equipped your paratroopers with. When you play with the truck, you're taking about the same amount of time it would take you normally to run from a spawn beacon to the objective, or wherever it is that you're going after you spawn, to get the truck from the vehicle spawn to wherever you want to park it. So you're not really taking much more time than a normal non-paratrooper squad to get in there. And the thing is, when it comes to leveling squads, like this was one of the things that really kicked off my like for the truck squads. When you're leveling a squad normally, the first 2 or 3 levels, at least to get the XP buffs, until you have, say, the first 3 XP buffs, it takes an eternity. Even with premium time, it takes an eternity. But with the truck squads, because they act as mobile spawn points, and you get like 50 points every time somebody spawns on one, if you just stash it somewhere, like 50 meters from an objective, and you put it somewhere where it's either out of sight or it blends in with the rest of the environment. I've had games where I just parked a truck at the beginning of the game, didn't play my APC squad for the rest of the game, and came out of it with 2, 3, 4, 5 perk points because people just spawned on it the whole match. And that's kind of nice. So, building from there, I kind of like that it does have some versatility. A lot of the maps, depending on the campaign, don't really favor outflanking with a truck, but some of the newer maps and some of the newer campaigns do. And you kind of have some choices with how you use the truck. And to be fair, I think these choices also depend on if you only have the tech tree truck or if you have the premium squad as well. So if you just have the truck, I think your best bet to use it is to drive it near a point. You need to be at least 50 meters away, park it, make sure it comes to a full stop and it's not rolling, get out, and then go to the objective, right? Because at 50 meters, it's going to act as a spawn point. If you have the half tracks as well, you can absolutely use it as a battle bus and you can just ram it into the objective. Like, you can drive it all the way up, hop out, and go to town. Now, obviously, that's a lot riskier. Like, have no illusions. This is not an armored vehicle. You're not immune to bullets. If people look at you, there's a good chance that you're going to start taking casualties. Now, the nice thing is if somebody hits you with, like, an AP tank shell, or if somebody hits you with, like, a Panzerfaust, a lot of the time, at least part of your crew will survive. Like, you absolutely can get hit, dismount, and fight. Now, if they hit you with an HE tank shell, there's a good chance everybody's gonna die. Or if a bomb goes off near you, or a rocket strike comes in, there's a good chance everybody's gone. So, my preferred way to use them is to get to that 50 meter mark, get out, and then go and fight on the objective. But if you want to use it as a battle bus, you can. The other nice thing about them is your AI actually do actively shoot out of them. I just wish that they would fight more like that when we're on foot. Beyond that, I think that they're pretty useful in general. I like that we're getting more spawn points as a team. I also like that they don't beep because they're already big and easy to see if you know what you're looking for, but the fact that they don't beep means that people don't go searching around every corner and every nook and cranny for them, which has led to some fun solutions that I've used. So sometimes I'll park it in the middle of the street, which park the truck in the middle of the street. Ugh, that's weird. Why don't it just get destroyed? The thing is, even though they all look distinctive from other battlefield debris, if you just leave it on a street, a lot of the time, if people don't see anybody in the truck, they'll just ignore it because they think it's part of the scenery. Or there are times where there will be some blown up trucks or whatever, and I'll just park it around them. Because again, it looks like it's part of the scenery. There was a match a week or two ago where I was fighting on Tunisia, and when we advanced, because we were attacking, the streets were covered in tank corpses because the other team kept pumping out tanks and our team kept pumping out tanks. And I basically took the truck and parked it in the middle of this tank graveyard, and it was pretty much left alone for the rest of the game. I've also parked it in some of the barns. There's a lot of Moscow maps where there's doors that are just big enough, or in Normandy there's a lot of barns that are more than big enough for you to drive the truck in and park it in there. And actually, there's also barns in the Pacific where you can drive the truck in and park it in there. And because it's not out in the open, people don't see it immediately. And it's because it doesn't beep, people don't go running in there looking for it the way they would for a spawn beacon, which can be nice. As far as taking them out, though, if somebody does find them, if you just throw an explosive pack near it, it just, boom, gone. Now, I do have a couple of gripes with it. Number one, and first and foremost, this is my biggest gripe with it. The entire time where I was trying to get footage to make this video, I was sitting there every match kind of annoyed because I would like to be able to spawn my squad separately from the truck, right? It doesn't sound like something that should really get to you, but hear me out, I have a good reason for it. So, when you're using your truck as a spawn, right, notoriously people in this game, they're really bad at building spawn points. And you, as an APC user, you can park your truck. If you die, or you already did it earlier in the game as a different squad, you can spawn as an engineer, you can go and you can build a spawn beacon. So you can have both a truck and a spawn beacon, okay? If you have the truck and you have the half track, you can have either the truck or the half track active, okay? If you only have the truck, and let's say you spawn the truck, you die twice, and you want to spawn the truck again, you still can only have one truck active. I get into situations, almost every time I pull my truck out, where I will park the truck somewhere, and now the truck is one of the somewhere between 1 to 3 spawn points that our team is depending on. And if I respawn as my APC squad, that means I either have to drive the truck back and make a breach where my team can't spawn there anymore, and then park it in the same place or park it somewhere else nearby. Because remember, when you spawn it, your previous truck is going to explode. So now there's a or a truck corpse sitting where you used to have your truck. So that basically locks me out of the squad, unless I just want to be a dick to my team, or unless I'm using it like a battle bus. If I'm using it like a battle bus, I can keep spawning it, and I can keep rushing in and jumping out and fighting, dying, spawn the half track, rush in, fight, die, spawn the truck, rush in, spawn, so on and so forth, right? But if my teammates are actively using my truck as a spawn point, it is in my team's best interest for me to not spawn in the truck, because I'm taking away from the resources that my team is actively using, and I'm fucking my own team over, so I'm not going to do it. And that just annoys me so much, because I would like to be able to, like when I was making this video, or even my normal play sessions, right? I'd like to be able to check a box the exact same way you do with your paratroopers that says, deploy on foot, If I deploy on foot, then I get the whole squad, I don't get the half-track, the previous one stays where it is. I don't have to worry about screwing my teammates over and taking out one of our own spawn points, but I still can use the squad, and the squad is really good. Like, my current Russian squad is a driver with a PPS 43, an assaulter, and a medic with also with PPS 43, 2 riflemen, they have Mosin 9130s, and an AT soldier, right? If I look at my Germans, I have a BR5 and they're super kitted out. There's 3 Condors and there's 3 FG42s, and it's the same composition. So, driver, assaulter, medic, rifleman, AT soldier, right? It's a really good squad. You have 3 assaulters and an AT guy. Sometimes I would like to be able to pull that out and actually use the squad, but if I'm gonna have to compromise my team's ability to spawn, I can't in good faith do that. Or likewise with the half-track. My German half-track right now is 2 machine gunners, 2 assaulters, a driver, and an AT soldier. That is an absolutely cracked squad. Like, 3 assaulters, 2 machine gunners, and an AT soldier? Whew! The only way you could possibly make it better is if they had an engineer. But I would like to be able to pull them out and use them while I already have stuff on the map without screwing my team over. So, if there's any one thing over everything else regarding the APCs that I would change, this is it. They haven't been in the game that long, and I'm not sure how many people have looked to like notice whether there are other trucks alive. Because whenever I spawn my truck, or my half-track, I always, unless they've recently pushed us, or we just pushed them, I always look at a normal infantry squad first, and I look to see if my truck's up. If my truck's up, I can't play them. If my truck isn't up, then I need to play them to go and replace my truck. And you can make an argument that that's my own personal hang-up. Okay, you're right, but I'm trying not to be selfish. I'm trying to actually promote, the better experience for my team. So, if I could change any one thing, they need an option to deploy on foot without their vehicle. Now, number 2, and this was brought to my attention by Ice, one of the guys that I play with. You probably see him in the background in some of the videos. He's Space Gorilla. He was telling me, because I'm normally driving the trucks, right? Because he spawns in them a lot. If you shoot out of the trucks, because you as a player can pull your weapon out and shoot out of the truck, apparently, to get out of the truck, you have to put your weapon away before you can get out of the truck. And I can see how that would be incredibly annoying. Like, we pull up to the objective, there's enemies everywhere. Shooting out of the truck works, but it's not like the best experience in the world. It'd be nice to be able to just hit your dismount button and get out. But apparently you have to put your weapon away and then, sit there for the 2 or 3 seconds while you, get out of the vehicle. So, that's another one that I would like to see changed. Beyond that, I think for the most part, they're doing pretty well. There is a bug that I've encountered a few times where the truck has spawned, like, stuck in the ground. And I have gotten a couple of spawns where, for whatever reason, it just spawned me in a position where I couldn't get the truck or the half-track out of. Like, I was playing in Normandy earlier, and it spawned me on top of a trench line, and because of the way that vehicle mechanics work in this game, the truck could not move forward. Well, it was a half-track, actually. It couldn't move forward or backwards. It was just stuck, and I had to walk the 200, 250 meters to the objective. And by the way, I also couldn't blow up my own half-track because I got out and tried to shoot an off and roar into it, and so now any of my teammates who see a truck on the map are like, oh, cool, the truck, because the icon on the map isn't always in the position where the truck is. Sometimes it just sticks it somewhere on the map. So now if they spawn on it, they're spawning all the way back at the vehicle spawn, which is also a problem. So they probably need to look at the spawn locations. Other than that, though, I think they're in a pretty decent spot. you can equip them with whatever weapons you would normally put on their particular classes. The driver can't take assault rifles, which it is what it is. I don't really care that much, but just for, I don't know, continuity's sake, with the rest of the squad, I'd kind of like if I could put an assault rifle on them. But yeah, for the most part, I don't really have a whole lot of other complaints about them. They do their job really well. The squads are pretty fun. If I could change one thing about the composition, I would add an engineer onto them. I think the initial idea when you looked at, or when Darkflow was looking at them when they made them, is if they act as a spawn point, you don't really need an engineer. And they're not wrong, you don't really need an engineer, but I kind of wish I had one, or at least the option to put one in the squad. But they're probably going to come out with more of these in the future, and I imagine that the squad compositions are going to be different on them in the future. So, that's fine. Now, going forward, I think that they have a lot of potential. There's potential to get them as event vehicles, but notably, they put them in the tech tree, and I think that they're far more successful than the riders and the motorcycles were. So, I wouldn't be surprised if we see more of them get added in the future. I wouldn't be surprised if we see at least 2, maybe 3 of them in the tech tree. Because right now you have your driver 1 and it's a truck. What I think you could do is make the truck driver 2s. And I think you could come out with driver 1, and driver 1 is a Willis Jeep or Kubelwagen or whatever the Russian equivalent is. And instead of being like a 6-man squad, it's like a 5-man squad. And basically you get your unarmored Jeep, it's got a weapon on the back, like an MG42 or an MG34, 30 cal, 50 cal, whatever, right? And then you customize your squad composition. So you'd start with a driver, and you'd probably start with 3 riflemen, and then you'd upgrade to a 4th and 5th. And you'd probably be able to take your 2 assaulters, your 2 machine gunners, your AT guy, you know, the same composition. You could make an argument for adding more or less of the various ones. And then I think that they can make APC 3, and APC 3 is your actual armored vehicle. So they can put in a tech tree version of the half-tracks. I don't really see why that would be an issue. They could even model them off of the premium ones and give them a similar loadout potential for, you know, the squad composition. And then going forward, way down the line in a few years, if we ever make it out of World War II, you could continue this with mounted infantry. So you could come out with your BTR soldiers or your BMP 1s, 2s, Bradleys, M113s, so on and so forth. So I think it's got a lot of potential. It's got a lot of potential longevity as well. I expect that at some point we're going to get a Marine version of them for the Americans, where they have Amtraks. Again, I've mentioned this before. I have nothing to back this up with, but my theory is that we're going to get an event in the future where we get an American APC squad, and I feel like it's going to be Marines in an Amtrak. The fact that it's an amphibious vehicle is just so niche in this game that you could use it on a few different maps. There's a lot of different environments where you have to cross water, but it's rare enough that it feels like it would fit an event squad pretty well. Beyond that, I would like to see in the future event or premium variants of this as really interesting and unique takes. Kind of like, so what they've done with the paratroopers is they've given them all of these different weapons in their boxes or different appearances. I really like what they did with the Italians with the flamethrowers. I think it's something that really stands out and it's unique and different. And I would like them to do that going forward with the half-tracks. I feel like if you're going to come out with event squads, rather than just have them be like Joe and Bill with the same, basically, weapons that are already available, or like the current event, these guys have very slightly different variants of things that we more or less already have access to. There's not really anything that stands out about them or makes them, I don't know, flavorful. I'd like to see them make the half-track premiums and the half-track event squads really interesting. So, for example, with the Russians had their Descentniki that rode on tanks, and they provided, like, security for the tanks from infantry coming up on them or whatever. I really want to get an APC for the Russians that's a T-34, and it's got 6 Mounties riding on the outside of it. I know the implementation probably would not be the easiest thing in the world for it, but I would really like to get something like that. I think it would be really fun. I don't know if you would keep it as a spawn point, though, and that's another thing. I don't think that they all always have to be spawn points. I think it adds something to the game for them to be spawn points, but I think if you come out with the tank, instead of it being a spawn point, you could make it a resupply point, where your teammates can just run up to it and they can grab ammo and whatnot off of it. Likewise, I think they can come out with some pretty interesting squad compositions. I think it would be really cool to get a half-track where, like, let's say with the Germans, you get a squad of assault grenadiers, and so it's just an assault squad in a half-track. I think that would be kind of cool. And they already kind of lean that way, but likewise, you could get, like, an unarmed half-track where, like, this would probably make a decent event, half-track. It's an unarmed half-track, everybody's a rifleman. It's a little bit boring, but I don't know. I think that they can play with the composition. I actually would probably hate it if they were all riflemen, but if they all came with an event rifle or mounted in a half-track, and you had, like, an AT soldier, radio operator, and an engineer. There you go. That's kind of more what I'm thinking. Them all being riflemen would actually be a terrible idea. But I think that there's a lot of ways that they can play with this and make really cool potential squads with it. And I hope that they do. I hope that this isn't just like a one-off thing. Like, the motorcycles have basically been left to rot, and I think they could do something with the motorcycles to revitalize them. I think the motorcycles actually fit very closely with the APC, and they fit very closely with my Jeep idea. So you could even treat them the same way that you treat the trucks and treat them as mobile spawn beacons. I mean, effectively, the use for the bike, at least for me, has always been to take an engineer, ride out to a flank, and build a spawn beacon. So if I can just do that with the bike itself, that would be kind of cool. But yeah, there's probably still going to be some B-roll running for a little while. That's usually how I make these videos. I leave some for you guys to watch at the end if you want to keep watching it. If you don't, that's cool. But as per usual, kick ass, take names, and win your games. And as a side note, all the normal YouTuber stuff, like comment, share, subscribe. Let me know if you think my ideas are horrible and stupid, or if you agree with me. If you guys have used the trucks, let me know down below if you've had any epic adventures with the trucks. I know that I've had a few where I got going in the truck, and one of my buddies spawned in, they're like, alright Drew, let's go, let's get him, yeah! And then we turned the thing into a battle wagon, and just had a whole ball of a time. There was one time today where I was trying to find a place to park it, but I was kind of just flooring the truck, and I ended up driving it into one of the, like, barns. I think it was on one of the Russian maps, and I almost jackknifed. Well, I can't turn the back, but I almost, like, turned the truck sideways, ramming it through the door. So, let me know your epic truck adventures. I'm sure some of you have much more interesting tales to tell about them than I do, but I've had a lot of fun with them.
захватывают А. Враг на точке С. Мы захватили А. Враг захватил точку С. Все точки. Удерживайте их. Противник занял точку Б. точке А. Противник занял С. Враг захватывает Б.